this video series, we're going to be taking a detailed look at the amazing Regroover Pro by Acusonus. Now, first of all, what is Regroover Pro? Well, Regroover Pro is a virtual instrument developed by Acusonus that allows you to do some pretty amazing things when it comes to working with loops, meaning that we can extract discrete layered information from multi-track or stereo files. We can extract some of the discrete sounds. And in addition to that, we also have an editor over here with some MPC style sample playback triggers where we can actually load different samples. So essentially giving us the ability to take musical loops and percussive elements and fuse them together. And also just breathe some new life into some, loops that you may have in your library. But it does this in a very different and unique way. And for that reason, it's one of my absolute favorite virtual instruments when it comes to working with loops and samples. So to start off with over here in this first video, I just wanted to do a little bit of an overview in addition to an introduction. So for example, this is the plugin as it comes up in its default position. Now, from a GUI perspective, we're going to kind of start unraveling this layer by layer as we move on through the series. But just to outline the basics over here, we basically have a layers section, which allows us to split our stereo drum loops into different layers. And we're going to see this in a moment. And in addition to that, we also have this editor section, and we'll also take a look at this in a moment. And then aside from that, we have some sequencer and host settings here, some grid settings, and then we have some menu options in terms of exporting, saving, recalling projects. We can do things like adjust our output level on the master, lots of different things. So to start off with here, let's quickly just take a stereo drum loop I have over here. I'm going to quickly play this. So just a very simple beat. You can see 115 BPM. To start off with here, I've set my session to the same BPM. Let's just go ahead and drag this right into the GUI of Regroover Pro. We'll let go. It's gone ahead and it's analyzed it over here. And what it's done is it's separated these layers. Now, essentially, this is the basic premise of this instrument, is that it has algorithms which allow it to identify and separate different elements based on lots of different things like the frequency content, the transient detection, all sorts of different things. And basically what you need to know in this video is that the summed result of these 4 layers over here, which we could actually turn into more layers if we wanted to, they end up representing the exact same 2 mix that we had in our original loop. So if I was to play that and I was to play this now, and then of course we have these individual layers that we can access. Now, in terms of the basics over here, you can see that we have a power button, which as you would imagine can power up or down each layer, and then we have a solo button. Then we've got a lock option. We're going to get into this later. And then of course, being as this is a virtual instrument, we have the ability to use or assign different outputs for this track over here in terms of our multi-out capabilities. And based on which DAW you're working with, you'd have to make sure that you set this properly. So for example, if I wanted to access some different multi-outs, I would simply have to enable them in my DAW of choice, and then we could access and assign these different layers to come out discrete channels if we wanted to. Now, in addition to having this over here, you can see that when we have each layer selected, which is indicated by this color bar over here off to the left, we also have the option to set some effects, and these are independent for each layer that you select. So for example, layer 4 over here, I could take this gate and I could adjust this. And if I move to layer 1, you'll see that now that gate is off. But if I move back to layer 4, this gate is in. So we're going to take a look at this in a little bit later on, but I just wanted to make note that we have this effects section, gate, EQ, compressor, and saturation that exists on each layer that we have selected. Now, in addition to that, we also have some basic mid-side adjustments and some stereo panning perspective, as well as a volume slider on each of these layers. So let's talk a little bit more about what the concept behind this plugin is and why it was designed. Well, essentially, we all find ourselves in the situation where we end up working with loops. It could be time constraints, or it could just be that you have a really awesome loop that has a certain vibe or a certain groove to it, and you want to use that as a starting point for your track. But you might not necessarily be married to all of the elements in the group. So perhaps it's just a hi-hat pattern that you'd really love to extract. Or maybe you have a loop that has a really awesome kick, and you'd like to be able to get under the hood and separate these elements out and actually resample that kick and maybe program a beat with that, an alternate beat where maybe you're not using any aspects of the loop at all. So that's all possible with Regroover Pro. So what I think we'll do is in the next video, let's take a look at some of the expansion kits that are available through the Acusonus website. And what we'll do is we'll have a look at how you would go about purchasing and installing or loading and opening those expansion kits. And then we'll have a look at opening those expansion kits. And then with each successive video, let's peel back layer by layer until we all have a really, really solid grasp and understanding of how this incredibly powerful virtual instrument works. So we'll catch up with you in the next video.